All right, so we have finished cutting out all of our pieces for our cereal box, and you'll see we have random organic shapes. They don't have to even have all straight lines. You can have curves, etc. So now we kind of need to separate out the large pieces from the small pieces because you don't want to use these tiny pieces for the base of your structure. You're going to want something with a little bit more solidity and ability to have, just strength at the bottom. So you don't want to use your smaller pieces, so just kind of separate them. That doesn't mean you'll use all the big pieces at the bottom, but kind of separate big and small, big, medium, small, whatever works, however you want to organize that. So I'm going to, just kind of put aside my smaller pieces and work with my larger pieces. Now notice if you have something that has like the tear edge, I wouldn't use that as, your solid. You need to have a good flat piece. It doesn't necessarily have to stick straight up and down, but kind of figure out what is my base going to look like. We've seen our examples that show, all different types of bases, even flat bases, and then they curve their box up. So there's so many different ways you can do this. You don't have to cut it all into little pieces like this. You could have had longer pieces. So the structure itself is up to you. It just has to stand on its own. It has to be a minimum of 1 foot tall, and your colors have to kind of coordinate on both sides so when it's all put together. So I have smaller pieces, and I am just going to work with those. I think I'll save that one because it's kind of sporadic. Now, I want you to know these are going to fall down. It's not going to be simple in the beginning. So once you get things going, it'll be a little bit better. So you're going to make a small incision about 1 centimeter, which is about the length of my pinky nail or width of my pinky nail. And then on the other side, on the other piece you're going to use, you're going to make another incision. And then you're going to kind of piece the two together. So you got to kind of have them groove together like that. Okay, so then you can kind of put that piece down. Then you might want to make another piece. Maybe I'll use a smaller one. Figure out, do I want it this way? Do I want it that way? This way might be more interesting. So again, I'll cut my little groove piece and figure out what is the most interesting angle that you can create. Notice I didn't cut that one this way, but I kind of did it this way, so it's going to give it even more interest. And kind of piecing them together. Be careful not to bend, or, if you do, you could lose some integrity. So you're going to want to get, 1 or 2 pieces set up like this, because then you're going to begin to splice these pieces together to create a base that's going to stand up. So, and then you're just going to start to build it up. So I'm going to do another one. And just random spots. You don't want your slices too big, but they need to be big enough. It's going to give you some sort of support. So I could use this as my 3 starter points. I think I kind of like... Now, angles are going to be important when you're cutting this. So I'm going to cut this one here. But then on this angle, when I put this one together, I have to think about how is that going to sit in there. So I'm almost going to slide it down. So I need to think my angle needs to go this way. So there's a bit of engineering and thought process. You don't want to obviously make that slit too big, and it can't be too high or else it won't sit level on your table piece. All right, so I've got my first piece standing up. It might be kind of hard for you to see, but that is it is standing up on its own. I do have all my Applejack side on this one and I'll paint on that. That's not required, but I think I might lean towards that unless it just doesn't happen organically. So now I've got to figure out, how am I going to start splicing these other pieces together? So I want you to really think, if you're going to do something like this, what are the angles of your cut that you're going to need? Okay, so don't just go in there randomly. So I'm going to, you got to kind of figure out, what pieces do you want on the bottom? Because there's really, until you do it, there's no right or wrong way. So figure out what has the most interest. So I would just play with it a little bit, see what works. And the taller you get, the more likely it is that it's going to fall. And you don't want you want a wider base, and it's going to need to get smaller as you get to the top. So don't just create, this small base here, but make sure that you give yourself a good structure on the bottom that's sturdy. You might have to, work on it a little bit. Let's see if that angle goes that way. I think I did that cut wrong. So you might even want to use your pen or Sharpie and make little dots for yourself. You don't want to make them visual, because if I can see them, then that reduces your grade. But you can at some point start to build up. But if you're like here and you don't have anything to support you down here, you're going to need to find yourself a support. So I'm going to put these two first together. Getting those two to fit together can be kind of tricky. Now sometimes you might find that you've created it and you got to rotate it, like these two, it's too short. So play around with it a little bit, figure out what's going to work. Make sure you're paying attention to your angles. I didn't put a slice in that one, but the slice really just helps lock them together. So I'm starting to get an interesting base here. And I could put one piece here to kind of connect the two of them. So I don't know if that's going to be quite long enough. I don't know. I might start building up and see where I need to build down. It's kind of, it's a work in progress. You do have to make sure your cuts are at the right height when you're building like this. Otherwise, one's going to be too tall, one's going to be too short. Oh, and that one, see how that just kind of collapsed on itself? So that didn't work out like I was hoping. But, let's see. Maybe I can come together. So don't be afraid to manipulate the pieces a little bit. Oh, I'm gonna rotate this to cut it. So the base is the first thing you need to really, really work on, obviously. Don't try and get your height until you're like, I have a good base that is going to hold up. Like this piece is just kind of flopping, so I don't know exactly what's going on with that one. But let's see if it works. Now I'm noticing I have a lot of pieces towards the inside of my color. So pay attention to that. I'd rather see, I want to see your painted pieces towards the outside of your actual artwork. So we're just going to begin to build it up. So this is one way you can do it. I'm not using any tape or glue, but if I do, you have to make sure that it's not visible. So I don't want to see it. Sorry, I'm coming out of the camera here. I gotta cut a slice here. So remember, it has to be a foot tall at minimum. So right now, mine's maybe 6 inches. So I've really got to go up with this. So if your piece is short and then tall, you might want to like use it going up and down if you're lacking for height. So I'm kind of putting everything down before I ever cut anything. And double checking to see where I want my little cuts. Because I gotta know where each cut is gonna go, so it'll actually work. I'm going to kind of move it like this. Maybe that'll help you. So I'm going to rotate it. Try and get it to gain some height. Some of this I'm just kind of guessing. I'm just going with it. I was totally in the wrong spot. There we go. Like this piece, I don't even know if it's doing anything down here. Don't feel like you have to do it exactly like me. If you have other ideas as to how to construct this and what to do to build your structure up. As you're watching mine, maybe it helps you figure out what you do and don't want to do when you begin to cut. Now I am running out of pieces. But I still have to find a ruler. Have a little ways to go till I hit my 1 foot. I've got 4 pieces left. So this is where I really got to make sure I'm creating a good structure. We'll bring it back up. Trying to get it so you can see it. And I don't necessarily just want pieces hanging out in the middle of nowhere. Where'd the cut go? There it is. just barely make this 1 foot. But notice as it gets heavier, it starts to sink. So I didn't slit. Ah! So it's a foot, but my cord doesn't. So you might have to play with it. We do want it to be sturdy, so if I'm going to add any type of glue, let's talk about that. So if I'm going to add glue, I don't want to see it. So liquid glue is probably your best bet, and just maybe little dots. Open it up. Oh, see, that was a lot. If you get this too gluey, it's going to become heavy and fall. So this is supposed to be more dimensional, and it's falling flat. So I don't know, unless I sit here and hold the glue, putting it up behind might help so I don't see it. You can get a Q-tip or a toothpick to hold it in place. Some of this is going to be patience. So just little bits of glue for the structure. Right in the seams. Probably your best bet. You don't want too much to take away from it. It should dry clear, hopefully. So you can carefully maneuver it a little bit. Don't be afraid to thin it out with a Q-tip or a pencil or something. Alright, that is our 3D sculpture using our cereal boxes inspired by Alexander Calder. And it should be at least 1 foot high. Have fun and good luck, guys.